You're listening to City of Muses on Paris Underground Radio. Welcome to the Season 2 premiere of City of Muses on Paris Underground Radio. I'm your host, Jennifer Garrity. I'm a screenwriter, filmmaker, and the creator and founder of the Paris Underground Radio podcast network. Each week, I sit down with an artist or creative to talk about what inspires them, what their creative process is like, and how Paris plays into it all. My guest this week is Agnès Sevestre, a Master Craftsman in Fine Crafts Engraving and the founder of A.S. Bronze d'Art. Agnès is only one of around 150 people in all of France qualified in this highly specialized art form. She works with metals like brass, copper, and bronze to apply ornamentation techniques to jewelry, furniture, light fixtures, silverware, and other such objects. You know those beautiful handmade flowers and butterflies you'll find crafted around an ornate perfume bottle, for example? That's the kind of work she does. But Agnès' most recent project, Archipels, is breaking her free from the tiny detailed work she's used to, and she's creating the largest pieces she's ever made. In our conversation, Agnès shares how she discovered metal crafting, engraving, and chiseling, what it felt like to fall in love with these crafts, and the personal nature behind her work. Hello, Agnès. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Jennifer. Thank you for having me.
Can you start by telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
So I am a 32 years old woman living in Paris, a craftswoman. I specialize in metalwork. My craft is very specific because it's an ornamentation technique on brass, copper mostly, sometimes bronze also. And it can apply on jewelry, it can apply on furniture, lighting, objects, silverware, really. It's just, the bigger of the pattern you want to have, the longer it takes, as any craft. So it's about chiseling is shaping and also giving volume and at the same time adding texture to the metal you're working on.
So this is so fascinating to me, and it's such a specific art form. How did you discover this?
It was kind of a chance, I'd say, because my grandfather was a craftsman, but he was repairing, TVs and radios back in the days. He was also fascinated by woodworking, so I spent a lot of time in his workshop, but I never thought, hey, I'm gonna do what he does or anything related to crafts. I did try mosaic and fabrics work, but I never tried metal at all. And when I applied to École Boulle, I thought I'd never make it. So I thought, okay, let's go for something that I don't know at all. And then I got in. I was first surprised, I have to say. But this was really a discovery. I think in any craft, it doesn't really matter, the technique you're using. It's more about the material you're working on. And I just had kind of a crush, on metal. It's been my job for 10 years. So now I know what I really like. I can talk about it more specifically. And I think in the imagination of most people, metal looks tough, rigid, really cold. And it feels to me it's like you're meeting a new person because you can have cliches or I don't know how to say it, a priori.
Preconceived notions.
Yes, thank you. And the more you get to know it, just like a person, the more you can actually do things and shape it, bend it. And really, it's just a dialogue with the material in any kind of size. I mean, I don't do big monumental works because my workshop is a little small, but it's really the material and all the secrets, I'd say, that it has.
Were you always attracted to these sorts of metals, or was this a discovery when you went to school?
This was a discovery when I went to school, yeah. I had one internship in particular with two bronze craftsmen that showed me all the possibilities in sculpture, in really the artistic part, I'd say, because at school you learn mostly on patrimony stuff, very classical patterns, like leaves, but very symmetrical. And then I went to their workshop for a month and a half, and they just showed me everything you can do, like not necessarily gilding or silvering something after you work on this, but use every color with patina and the shapes and the size and the foundry parts and so many technical and creative possibilities that really, I think this was at about 2 days after I started my internship. I was like, I remember really thinking it's like, okay, I want to do this my entire life. This was, I don't know how to really explain it, but it was the feeling and the passion that they showed. And they let me come back on holidays and weekends, and we had such a great relationship. They were really my masters, in addition with, of course, my school teacher. Yeah, they were really important, I think, in my journey.
I was going to ask you about that, if there was a moment where it clicked for you and thought, this is the thing I want to do with my life.
Yeah, there is. I already told you so.
Yeah. Was it watching them, or was it working on something yourself that made you feel that way?
It was both, I think. It was 2 days, so it was really fast, and I just saw the magic and the blowtorch and the colors and the texture and everything it just clicked. It just got together, and I was like, okay, this is my life now.
It's wonderful. It's magical when you can find that connection.
Yes, I know.
And so now you're a master of this profession. Is that right? Or this craft, I should say.
I have the title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you get this title? How do you become a master artisan?
It's the craftsman. I don't have the exact English translation. It's Chambre des métiers et de l'artisanat. And it's an institution that represents every craft that exists, and you apply for it. You have to show that you are committed. You have to show your work, of course, and also that you're committed to transmission, to sharing, and to pass on your knowledge. And then it's only been 10 years or so at the scale of a whole life. I mean, I still have a lot to learn, and I still do a lot of experiments, but it was, I was really proud when I got it. Because I got it when I was not even 30 years old, and wow. I think it's not that common, So yeah, it was a real accomplishment.
It's amazing.
Thank you.
Do you remember the first piece that you ever created?
The first one? Oh, it was my first year at school. At the end of the year, we had carte blanche to do something, and I worked on a book cover.
Oh.
A small one. I mean, I didn't go for the whole encyclopedia. But it was about The Little Mermaid, the fairy tale. And I remember it was so ugly because I still had so much to learn, especially the volume and the proportions, the drawing. I didn't finish it ever. I should actually. I could get back on it right now. I hope it's going to be better. But this was, a book cover.
That's so interesting. A book cover. Were you an artist at a young age? Were you drawing and sketching and things like that when you were little?
I did have some drawing classes. My parents put me to it. My dad drew a lot, and my mom is very manual. I mean, she sews her own clothes. She draws a little. But they, just like me, they never thought about making a job out of it, But yeah, it's kind of in the family, but more like a hobby than an actual job. But yeah, I draw, then I stopped, then I got back to it. I did literature studies before going to Bull, so I had an art specialty. And I have to say, going to Bull made me realize I didn't draw that well, It made me progress a lot on drawing. And in addition to learning a whole new job. So, it takes time, This is, I think most crafts, in opposition with the current society that we live in, especially in big cities like Paris, where it's going really fast everywhere. It really like calms me down, because I'm focusing on what I do and I'm taking the time to do it right. And I'm allowing myself to make mistakes and also start over.
How much of where does the idea come from when you're creating a new piece? Where do you start?
I'm really inspired by nature, but it can be anything really. I live near the Bois de Vincennes in Paris, so I can take long walks, watch the color changes, the shapes of leaves and flowers, proportion also. It can be also in museums, in really everyday walk, or it can be also meeting people, which is one of the perks of living in a big city, is that it's crowded, but at the same time, you can talk to a lot of people, and sometimes some come by the workshop, see what I'm drawing or what I'm working on, and they're like, oh, you should do this, you should do that, you should try this shape. You could do like a bigger piece if you just accumulate all of these small ones. So it's drawing, trying. I like to go, I don't know, it's not really fast, but like try to work on metal as soon as I can in the process, just to see if it's going to work what I have in mind. And if it doesn't, I can start over. But it's really, drawing colors mostly. Recently, I spent since, I don't know, less than a year, I'd say, I'm really interested in colors, patinas on metal. So I'm really working on that and how to make the color, because it's not that simple. So I try a lot of things, but it's really inspiration, I think, comes from anything, my surroundings, and also really the people that I met, that I talk to, that I work with, because my workshop is at the Cité des Taillandiers in the 11th arrondissement. And we are 22 craftsmen, craftswomen, designers. So we exchange a lot, we talk a lot, and ideas are everywhere. It's just how you realize it and how you make it real. And this kind of the magic of the things, trying to, sorry. I'm sorry to speak French in my head. It's the magic about crafts that you have this idea and you can make it appear not immediately, but in a week you can see what you had in mind, and it's a thing, it's an object, it's a jewel, it's a sculpture. This is really satisfying, to be able to make a project from zero and make it appear.
Yeah. To have the thing that you're crafting with your hands match the picture that's in your mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how difficult is it possible, if you make a mistake, to fix it when you're working with metal?
It depends what mistake you make. When I work on a pattern, sometimes I can adjust it, like draw the line differently, or I can't erase it. I can find some tricks to cover it up with a texture or something, but I can't erase it. And when you work on an object, when there is really metal shaping or welding, well, you can cover it up, but it involves so much work. Sometimes it's better to start over, really. It depends on the mistake, but I can assess pretty quick now, if I have to start over or if I can go on. And again, I don't work on big pieces, so it's okay. But I try not to make, mistakes. Yeah.
Curious about what's going on in Paris right now? My second podcast, Don't Miss This, takes you beyond the typical and the obvious with a weekly roundup of the best of what's happening in Paris each week. Never wonder what you're missing out on again. Listen now to Don't Miss This on ParisUndergroundRadio.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll be right back with City of Muses after a word from our sponsors. And now, back to City of Muses on Paris Underground Radio. You mentioned before working with these colors, with the patinas, and I've noticed in your work these really beautiful reds and blues. How do you get these colors? Is it a matter of chemistry?
It is, actually. There is no actual training for patina, so I learned it on internships. And working later on several businesses. And you have to experiment all the time. You have to not make the wrong chemistry mix because it can actually be dangerous. There are some products you can buy on very specific stores for professionals. Works like a tiny bath when you put the metal on and it just like, whoa, appears. And then there is the other part, which you do with a blowtorch and you make your own mix. It's like tiny crystals that you can dilute in water. You can mix it with color pigments. You can mix it with varnish. You can mix it with wax. There are so many combinations, and the difficulty is to find the combination that will stay in time, because patina is fast acceleration of the natural oxidation of metals. So if you don't protect it afterwards with a varnish or a wax, or if you don't
seal it somehow.
Yeah, it's going to move. But any metal except for gold and stainless steel, I think, will move in time. But when you accelerate the process of oxidation, it can go really, really fast.
Yeah, you purchase a set of earrings and go home and it's a completely different set of earrings.
It can be, actually, depending on the acidity of your skin. It can really change if it's not protected, yeah.
And speaking of jewelry, have you always been interested in jewelry and in jewelry making?
Not particularly, no, but there was COVID and I didn't have a workshop at that time, so I was working here from home and I don't have a lot of room, so I started to make jewels because it was the only thing I could do at the time, and it worked. It worked pretty well, actually. The only difficulty is that there are a lot of jewelers, and it's really, I'm gonna say competitive, but it's not the right word.
That is the right word.
That is? Okay. Thank you. So now I'm more focused on getting by to, sculpture, tiny objects. But jewels are, easy to carry for art fairs or pop-up stores or exhibitions. There is also that, to take into account. But it's hard to stand out because there are so many creators doing amazing jewelry. Also, I don't work on, precious metal like silver or gold. So people sometimes don't understand maybe the prices, or most of the time, when I do an exhibition, I just make a demo. Like I bring my tools and I show them live how it's done. And then they get it and they're like, wow, okay, that's the right price. Yeah.
Yeah, everything is very intricately handcrafted. You've put some videos on your Instagram that I was watching, and you're like very close to the thing, chiseling and engraving and
yeah.
Delicate work.
Yeah, I try. Thank you.
So I was looking at your work, and most of your pieces are these small, delicate pieces. But can you talk to me about Archipels?
Yes, I can.
Which I think in English is archipelago, but I never say that word correctly, so I apologize. I can't say it in English.
Okay, well, we'll go with Archipels. It's a long... I think I've had it a long time in my mind, and I just put it to rest. And then when I got my new workshop, it's been 2 years since I'm at the Cité des Taillandais, so I could start over on bigger pieces. I have actually the shapes of Archipel looks like a little earring pair that I made that are called clouds. So I really do like the curves. Again, it's really nature inspired, like something symmetrical kind of bothers me. I don't know. I just really like the curves in general. And so I made it a tiny sculpture, and then I made it a huge wall installation, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And at some point, I'm going to have to stop. But the Archipel, I do like the definition, because in my creative process, I draw and then I make things, and I'm like, okay, it needs a name, actually, because people need to be able to identify it. And the definition of Archipel is an ensemble of separated elements, but they do have, most of the time, the same geological origin. Really often it's volcanic, I think, as I recall. but you don't see the origin. It's just like these little islands side to side, and you don't really know where it came. Well, I mean, if a geologist could hear me, he probably would tell me where it comes from. The thing that you see, you don't see what's underneath. And I think it's interesting. It's a parallel again with person who you are. It's like you are all of this tiny flaws or qualities or aspects, and it's a whole thing that makes it you, but you don't really show everything, to one person at the same time. So I think my job is kind of my therapy, because I put a lot of me into my creation. And lately I've been opening myself to new things, new people. So my work really reflects that. I think it kind of puts me into deeper knowledge of myself. And at the same time, it's really opening me up. Because saying that is very intimate, kind of. And it's kind of forcing me to get out of my comfort zone. So the more I go into very specific works like this, that can also be interpreted as, anything you want, really, because when people see it, they can just think of a beautiful island. The more I get to know me, I think it's really a constant. It has been this year in my work, yeah.
I love that. That's really amazing. It adds another layer to the piece when you're looking at it too, just to know that it's personal to you.
Yeah, it is really. Yeah.
So what is that experience like of going from these little tiny delicate pieces to creating a massive wall installation? What is that creative process like for you?
Well, I put everything back against the wall in the workshop because I need the room. And I start drawing mostly on the floor, I just put out big papers. I add everything together, see what works, see what doesn't. I check if I have enough brass in stock, because if not, I have to go get some. And this is also, way more physical than doing small things. So it's really a huge engagement, like it's a mind and body experience. And it does take shape piece by piece. It's a long time. It's really, I go into this kind of creative flow and I have to stop myself, because if I don't, I could really sleep in the workshop sometimes. But it's really, it's really deep. And when it's done, most of the time I can find it pretty, because, I spend so much time on it that I can stand it. But then it's ready for the show. And most of the time I do have great feedbacks from people. So I'm like, okay, it's out. And then it's living its own life, This is a really specific part of the creation that most of the things you do, first you do it for yourself, but then there is this point when you have to share with everyone, and really it's random strangers who doesn't know you or your work. And this is the second part of which is not from me, but with everyone. I also like this, sharing. It's a lot of energy, to give and to be ready and to answer all the questions. And most of the time when it's an opening, you just repeat the same thing every 30 minutes. But it's interesting. The more you do it, the more you know how to talk about your process, about your work. So yeah, I also like the sharing parts. I like both. I like being alone in my thing and in my mind. And I also like sharing it and show the world how amazing my job is,
Is it possible for you, I imagine when you're creating the piece, that you're so in the details, like you said, you get sick of it and you just don't want to look at it anymore. But do you ever, when you showcase it, when it's out in the world, are you ever able to look at it again through fresh eyes to see it how other people see it?
Yeah, it actually helps to have feedbacks. I think it's really important to have feedbacks actually on your own work. During COVID, I was working alone, and this was the first time in my 6 years as an independent that I was alone, and I actually hated it because I realized that there was no one to talk to, and there was no feedback, no advice. So I was like, okay, I need to do something. And it's, and sometimes also you meet other artists, other craftsmen, craftswomen, that the work really can resonate with their own. And it creates collaborations, and it creates friendships, and it creates everything in so many levels.
It's really interesting. When I was looking at your work, and I was looking at a lot of your pieces are flowers and leaves and that kind of thing. And I was thinking about nature and how Paris probably isn't the best place to go for nature, although you are near the woods, which is good. But it sounds like you get a lot from the connection between people too. And so it's much more this sort of collective energy that informs your work.
Yes, it does. And nature, well, I don't come from Paris. I come from Orléans. I came for my study, and then I stayed for work, because Paris is so, it's where the work is most of the time, you know. But there is, I mean, I live in the 12th arrondissement, and it's really quiet. It's really big. It's not the most, shaky partying neighborhood. So it's okay. And I also go back to my family a lot, and I have a lot of friends that live in Normandy or in the south. So I move around a lot also to get that energy. But yeah, the collaboration, the collective energy, it really gives me a dynamic that I need. Because if you don't share it, I mean, I don't really see the point, you know, because I think also a huge part of it is because I learned my crafts, and I learned to love it by meeting people. The meetings, the people that I met during my career really changed at some very specific point, but how I saw my craft, how I worked, how I thought about it. And so now I try to do the same, you know, by, I don't know, having interns or giving classes or welcoming students group in the workshop when I have the time. But it's really important. I mean, I can't be okay all by myself all the time. I also need time by myself. But it's really about balancing. I need to spend time at home alone, and then I need to be in the workshop, and then I need to be in exhibitions and talk to people and show. It's really, yeah, the balance is really important to me.
Have you always dreamed of owning a place in Paris? If you're planning on moving, renting, buying, or selling a place in France, you'll need the expert guidance of Gail Boisclair and Marie Pistinier, hosts of the Paris Estate of Mind podcast. Listen now to Paris Estate of Mind on parisundergroundradio.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll be right back with City of Muses after a word from our sponsors. And now, back to City of Muses on Paris Underground Radio. You mentioned your classes. Can you tell our audience a little bit about the classes that you offer?
Yes, I do. It's on Fridays and Saturdays afternoons, and it's really just initiation about chiseling, because, I didn't say that, but chiseling, it's very specific. We are like 150 craftsmen and women doing it in France right now. It's so small. Most people don't know my craft. So, as I was saying, I learned of the possibilities by meeting people, so I want to pass it on, you know, meet new people, give them the will to do it, or, I don't know, just show what you can do, and have a little, because I do have a very large public, like I have journalists or legal workers or IT people. Most of them, you know, don't do things with their hands, and there is this, like, mostly immediate satisfaction when you realize that you can do something with your hands. It's really concrete. No, concrete is not the right word.
Yeah. Concrete is right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really tangible thing that you can do and see. Yeah.
And so, and I do get it every day, you know, because this is my job, but most people actually don't. So this is really nice to see in the classes when they're like, wow, and the little sparkle and in the eyes, and you know, just that they are very proud of themselves for making even a tiny, tiny things. But yeah, it's really nice to, again, share, connect.
It's really cool to share something that most people probably don't even know is a craft that exists.
Yeah.
So if you were going to tell our listeners something, people who are unfamiliar with this art form, is there anything that you would like them to remember about your craft?
Oh, it's a tough one. The possibilities when you work, I mean, because it's unknown also because it's really long and it takes time, and it's ornamentation that basically doesn't exist nowadays in the interiors and the furniture. The time, I don't know. There is something about time, taking the time. I think it really also, people are really happy when they come to the workshop that to make it tangible, but also to have taken the time to do something for them. I don't know that you can do anything with metal and it's magical, and you have to share it. I know it's a little redundant because I've said it several times, but it's really what drives me,
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think there's something powerful in, like you said, taking the time to craft something meticulous and beautiful for the sake of it being beautiful. I think it's lovely.
Yeah, also, yeah. Because I also like to do more art than useful things, and it touches people or it doesn't. But if I can, just like, I don't know, brighten the day of one people, that's so one thing that I did. It's okay. It's okay for me.
Yeah, I was looking at some of your perfume bottles. And, it's not necessary to have a perfume bottle with a little flower on it or anything like that.
It's not.
But they're so beautiful. And
Thank
it's like
you.
a little piece of art in itself. And even when the perfume is gone, you have this little just handcrafted piece of art. It's lovely.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, so where can people find you if they want to keep up to date with what's going on in your world and with your art form?
I have Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube. I have my website with my online shop, and they can meet me on demand in the workshop.
Perfect.
Many platforms.
Many, many ways. I'll include links to everything so that people can get to you directly really easily if they want to.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Agnès. This is wonderful. Thank you so much for speaking with me.
Thank you, Jennifer, again for having me. Bye.
Thank you for listening to City of Muses. If you've liked what you heard, please take a moment to rate and review it. This is the fastest and easiest way to help support the podcast. Tell a friend who could use a little inspiration. You can also subscribe to the Paris Underground Radio newsletter over on our website, parisundergroundradio.com, which comes out every Sunday and gives a little peek into what's on the network for the week ahead. I'm your host, Jennifer Garrity. You can find me on all socials at Jennyphoria. That's JennyPhoria. Thank you for listening, and may you find inspiration wherever you go. City of Muses was produced by Jennifer Garrity for Paris Underground Radio.